The Boston Druid and the Wizard, written by Thomas Kennedy, narrated by Wendy Wolfson. Chapter 1. Brian pushed his way through the throng in Temple Bar. It was nearly midnight on Easter Saturday, and the downtown area was hopping with life and fun. He pushed around a group of young men dancing the haka mid-street, watched by their girlfriends, all smiles and delight. All around him were hen parties dressed up and riotously noisy, stag parties, Italian tourists talking in excited voices, Russian accents, French accents, and of course the crack between the real dubs, the irrepressible locals. The pavements were overflowing with excess youth and with groups standing smoking outside the crowded pubs. Since smoking in pubs became illegal, standing outside having a smoke had evolved into a good way to chat up girls who were similarly occupied. 16 years old, Brian was self-conscious and withdrawn. Eye contact tightened a knot in his stomach, and he dreaded the thought of bumping into someone who might know him. With hands in the pockets of his cotton jacket, known locally as a hoodie, head down, even-paced, shoulders hunched, hooded cotton jacket drawn to cover head and face, he slid unnoticed around the groups crowding the street and pavements in this pedestrianised area. It felt like the entire world was able to have a great time, but that, as usual, he was an outsider. At school, he was designated as one of the sad, a nerd. His route brought him out under an archway opposite the Halfpenny Bridge, a centuries-old pedestrian footbridge, across the River Liffey. He walked across its arched back, noting beggars at each end and one in the middle. The beggar on the middle of the bridge had a sheet of cardboard against his back to protect himself against the bitter wind blowing down the Liffey. Brian crunched up tighter. The Temple Bar with its narrow, crowded streets had seemed warm, but here he was exposed to the elements. The noise was different now. A city buzz of traffic, and everywhere was lit up in neon and street lighting. But there were fewer people, and it felt considerably less frenetic compared to Temple Bar. He turned left, walking alongside the Liffey in an upriver direction. He passed a newer pedestrian bridge and pressed on towards the larger Capel Street Bridge with its footpaths and 4 lanes of traffic. As he turned left onto the bridge, he was the only pedestrian, although it was busy, with plenty of cars travelling in both directions. It had started to rain gently, and the wind coming down the river felt cold and unfriendly. Unlike the pedestrian bridges, which had modern wire net fencing to protect from accidents, Capel Street Bridge had a shoulder-high parapet, and he could see clearly downriver in the direction he had come. The river looked cold and dark. It was wide, but not too wide, and he could see both sides of the quays along the length of the river. It had granite-walled quaysides that narrowed the flow through the city and deepened the river. The wind was chopping the top of the water into small waves as the incoming tide pushed back on the flow towards the sea. The sea was close, just a couple of miles further down the quays. He could end it all now. But he'd have to overcome the desire to swim, for he was a good swimmer, having completed the life-saving course at his local swim baths. The water was cold, and surely he'd not last more than 10 minutes. Then it would be over. The embarrassment, the fear, the pain of being, and no more teasing, no more the outsider nerd, no more Brian. So easy. He fingered the aluminium cross around his neck, pulling it to hang outside his jacket. He was not religious, but for some reason his mother had given it to him that morning. Had she sensed something? His despair, perhaps? "Wear it for me," she'd said. It was cheap and tatty, but he wore it rather than have a row.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?